Dear Professor Cockell, it's a great pleasure and true honor to welcome you in Ukraine and in Tarasa Shevchenka National University of Kyiv. My name is Yulia Lysenets and I'm the head of International Relations Department, Research and Analytics at the Fund of the President of Ukraine for support of education, science and sports. The institution that actually launched and organized this particular program, Visiting Professors program. And we would like to ask you a couple of questions for our students, for our community, for our colleagues. So just welcome once again.
Дякую. По-перше, я дуже радий бути тут.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So my first question would be, of course, to start our conversation, what was your original motivation to come to Ukraine, especially during the war, and to participate in the Visiting Professors program?
Yes, I have many colleagues and friends at Kyiv National University, but also in other institutions, for example, the Institutes of the National Academy of Sciences. And for a long time, we've had collaborations looking at microorganisms in extreme environments, space microbiology, and related fields. And so my motivation, of course, is to continue those collaborations. Science is an international endeavor. There are very few projects these days that are not international. So whenever there are challenges, it's important to support colleagues in continuing to build scientific collaborations across nations, thinking about new ways to teach students, to build scientific projects. So this is certainly a major motivation for being here.
Thank you so much. This kind of solidarity is something that actually keeps us going, so thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Stemming from this first question, I would like to ask the second one. What are your short-term expectations and results that you expect to achieve after this particular visit finishes? Thank you.
While I've been here, I've had the opportunity to give lectures and discuss new programs with a whole variety of people at all levels of academic positions. So I've given talks in the Lyceum to high school students. I've spoken with senior members of staff about collaborations and PhD projects, and then right the way through from undergraduate to master's PhD students. I've had a wonderful opportunity to provide lectures and have discussions with students here at the university and in other institutions. So really the idea here is, first of all, just to come here and teach and to share my enthusiasm for my own subject with students and fellow members of staff. But of course the other objective is to build new collaborations into the future. So we've spoken about continuing courses in astrobiology, space sciences, planetary sciences and related areas. So I hope to continue teaching at the university both in offline and online format. We've spoken about new doctoral projects, and we're going to be having some conversations this week and next week with students interested in doing doctoral programs, so that will lead to new projects in space sciences. And then finally, a little bit more ambitiously, we've spoken about potential ideas of establishing a centre at the university. These things take a little bit longer, a little bit more administration, but certainly there are some big ideas out there about how we might consolidate a centre that will help students work across different scientific disciplines and learn how to think across different scientific disciplines, which is crucial for building a community of students who can think critically and apply those skills not just in science but policy and many other areas of society.
Wow, that sounds like an incredible plethora of activities and plans. And I would like to ask one more question, given your extensive background of contacts and teaching and research here already throughout all your stays, have you observed any peculiar features of Ukrainian academia in terms of students or faculty or academic culture in general? Anything interesting or peculiar, if anything at all, of course?
The students are outstanding, and I always say one way you can tell whether students are outstanding is whether they take an interest in going beyond their field of study and moving into new fields. And I've been amazed at the breadth of students that have attended my lectures. Of course, some of them are physicists, biologists, chemists, the sorts of people you would expect to maybe have an interest in astrobiology. But I've also had students from the Department of International Relations. I've had students in international law, philosophers, psychologists. And this is a very strong indication of individuals with inquiring minds who want to know new things. And I would take the opportunity just to expand on that comment a little bit politically. I think that science is always an area that challenges ideas. The whole idea of science is to challenge existing ideas, to create a generation of students who eventually move out into society, whether they're science or politicians who question things. And therefore there's a strong link between science and the institutions of a free society, which I happen to believe in very strongly. So as a scientist and as an individual, I am interested in promoting a good scientific environment, but also the wider social environment that promotes free-thinking minds. And I'm really impressed by the strength of that independence of mind in Ukrainian students and their approach to learning. And I think to have those attitudes and outlooks, particularly at the current time, is really very impressive. They will not be put off from showing this interest in science and in the wider culture of a healthy, free-thinking student body and society. And it's wonderful to have the opportunity to come here and contribute in a small way to this culture at this university and other institutions. And I would like to say, with the support of the Fund of the President of Ukraine, this has also been a great honor to be supported in this way, so thank you.
That's great to hear, thank you so much. And speaking about interest in science, currently in Ukraine there is kind of tendency that the enrollment rate of students pursuing STEM at universities is currently underrepresented, so there is not sufficiently as many as we want students pursuing STEM at university level. So how would you motivate and encourage young people actually to enroll and pursue physics, astronomy, astrobiology in particular, and STEM in general?
Yes. It's very important for students to learn fundamental principles in any science. You can't get away from the need to learn the basics and the foundations. But having said that, those basic principles that students must learn can be wrapped up in exciting scientific questions. And if you want to encourage high school students to go to university and do science, they have to see a connection with the big questions of society. And today, some of those questions include how do we live on a planet successfully, the climate, some of these sorts of questions. I would say from my own point of view, astrobiology, this is of course a biased point of view, but I think questions such as the origin of life, how did life start here, how did life evolve on our planet, could we find instances of life elsewhere, and can we use biology to do practical things like space biotechnology, developing instruments to look for life that could be used in hospitals and in agriculture. These to me are tremendously exciting questions. They're very current questions, and I know when I went to the Lyceum and gave a talk to the high school students there, they had really outstanding questions, great detailed questions about science and the latest scientific questions. So students must see that it's useful. You can't go to a 16-year-old and say, please do science because learning about the molecular mechanisms of photosynthesis, not that that's not important, but if you home in on very detailed questions based on maybe things that they can't grasp be useful to society, then of course it's difficult to get their enthusiasm. So I think that the key is to identify excellent questions. Some of those questions apply all over the world, whether you're in the UK or Ukraine. This is why the collaboration between the University of Edinburgh, Kyiv National University can work, because we can both look for those exciting scientific questions and then encourage students from STEM in the UK and Ukraine to join their respective universities. So that's a rather long-winded way of saying you just need to get students excited about current questions and they will automatically take an interest in doing science and other STEM subjects.
Yeah, totally agree that sparkling this enthusiasm is absolutely invaluable and rewarding.
Yes.
Experience. Thank you so much. And I would like to emphasize that our fund takes particular attention and takes care of talented and gifted young Ukrainians. So this is our target audience, those who are top performers and high achievers in education and science and other areas. So what piece of advice would you give to gifted and talented Ukrainian young students just for the future, to pursue their future professional path?
Thank you for asking. There's a really crucial point here, is that young Ukrainians build Ukrainian science. it would be a tragedy, and I know that there are cases of this, and I think it is a tragedy when students develop excellent scientific knowledge and expertise, and then their objective is to travel to another country, and then they stay there and do not come back. One of the remarks, I mean, it's quite natural that anyone in any country looks to other countries for collaborations because it's exciting. When you're young, you think somewhere else is more exciting. Ukrainian students naturally are interested in creating connections across Europe, maybe the Euro-Atlantic world. But they should remember that Ukraine is in an extraordinary geographical position. It sits at the eastern edge of the Euro-Atlantic world, on the western edge of the Asian world, where of course there's enormous scientific development, India and China. And it also sits at the northern tip of the global south in Africa, where there is growing expertise and scientific expertise. In fact, only a couple of days ago I was at an opening of African Masks, where there was a lot of discussion about the growing connections between Ukraine and Africa. And this is not new, of course, because the Kievan Rus was a trading empire that sat at this trading crossroads across the world. So in the modern world, Ukraine can be you can think of it as like a scientific crossroads between East and West and the growing global South. And in that geographical reality is an enormous opportunity for young Ukrainian students to build the future of Ukrainian science in a very exciting way. And what they should be thinking is, how can we make Ukraine a place where Europeans look to Ukraine as a place to build their science and connect with the global South and India and China and emerging scientific powers. So my piece of advice to them would be to continue along the trajectory, but of course to direct those energy, go abroad and get experience for sure, but come back and use that energy and knowledge to build Ukrainian science, because there's enormous opportunity here, and the institutions in Ukraine are outstanding, from physiology to astronomy and cybernetics and a whole range of sciences that have a very long tradition and heritage in this country, and all young Ukrainians should seek to build that and turn Ukraine into a focal point of scientific activity around the world.
Thank you so much. It was such a great pleasure to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much for your time, and we wish you a very successful rest of your stay here in Kyiv, in Ukraine, and of course we look forward to welcoming you again very soon in Ukraine during your next academic visits. Thank you so much once again for your wonderful support and cooperation. It's very important for our country, and we wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your support. It's wonderful to be here. Дякую.
Thank you.